computer. All right. And yeah, Monica, feel free to hop on and add whenever. Present. Oops. Here you go. Present. Okay, so this is a sanctuary schools model policy. Why is sanctuary schools policy? And so everyone kind of recognizes the threat of mass deportation right now. One thing is sanctuary school policy actually just reaffirms existing legal frameworks and precedent, such as FERPA, HIPAA, Ply vs. Doe, the Constitution. So it's aligned with legal frameworks. It's reinforcing them. It's not anything necessarily new. Sanctuary schools policy helps create a safe learning environment, kind of emotionally, but also like literal and physical, not letting ICE on campus. It creates physical safety for students that may be undocumented. Who created this policy? So it was originally created by the National Immigration Law Center, and it was supported in its updates from all these different organizations and individuals throughout Vermont. And yeah, thanks, Monica, for a lot of work that you did on this.
Alyssa, can I add something
Anytime.
and why all of these organizations came together and why it's important being, yes, it's really important for undocumented students and families. It's also important for students and families who might have some sort of various status. There's been a lot of like weird threats coming down, but it's important for all students in general. We know that when there's a sense of fear in a school or an educational setting, that just kind of permeates the entire education and learning environment. And so just making sure that while this is focused on our immigrant families and students, it's really important for all of our families and students and educators in our schools.
Cool. Thanks for emphasizing that. Then here are some of the core aspects of the policy. And I think one thing that the document from, what's it called, the National Immigration Law Center said is like you could make some shifts to the policy, but these four things are like really core and should stay. And so one thing is limiting information sharing to ICE. So if they ask to see student records, that would not be allowed. Restricting ICE access to campus. So if they physically show up at the door, they're not allowed on, I think, unless they have like a warrant that's signed by a judge. Prohibiting any staff from collaborating with ICE or communicating or emailing with ICE, including any school, police, or security. They might be the most likely to be communicating with ICE. And ensuring schools provide resources and information for immigrant students and families, specifically know your rights information. Monica, you want to add anything to this one? Okay. So organizing for the policy. On this left side, I shared some tools that might be helpful. The first two are really specific to kind of like organizing and understanding sanctuary school policy. Um, this NEA one and the campaign strategy workbook are just kind of general general tools for organizing a campaign. And then these are some talking points I think we could that Monica did a wonderful job with them and we did them quickly and so we could update them. But some of those points that Monica made earlier just around creating a safe environment for everyone is included here. Yeah, and then on the right hand side, I just shared some things I might want to think about. Like it's always important to do this with a group, making a plan, um, thinking about whose opinions you need to shift, crafting a message, uh, influencing stakeholders. Who are the key stakeholders? Typically, school board members, the superintendent, the principals may have some influence. There may be other influential people in town that if you can get on your side, you can pass the policy. And having a school board speak out may be part of this. And we encourage groups of students, like a student club could take this on. I think in U32, there's already a student club that may try to organize around this. A superintendent could take it up, parent group, and we'll do questions at the end too. Um, and I'll go to the right side. And there were some good, I'll keep adding some links here, but there were some good tools I found online just around messaging and communication around immigrant issues that are going to get the most strength. Yeah, do you want to add anything, Monica, to this one? All right. So this is just, I'm not going to go over all of them, but this is a whole bunch of know your rights information that could be shared out with families. And then another thing which I'll share more info about when we have it is we've had discussions around families may want to consider legal guardianship in case something happens to them. This is thinking about there may be a mixed status family where the kids have documentation and the parents don't. The parents get caught at work or driving home. There probably wants to be a plan in place of where that kid's gonna go, some type of family or friend that is gonna kind of keep them safe and take care of them, so they don't ideally not go into state custody. Um, Anything else you want to share here, Monica, of things we'd want to share with parents besides this information?
I guess the thing I'll add about this and the previous slide is just like um, organizers, folks organizing for this, educators, school leaders are going to have to kind of make a decision based on their particular community about like who exactly is sharing these Know Your Rights resources. But we do want to make sure that that the school leaders are sort of indicating that their schools, their school community, their district is a safe space for all students, and that sharing this information is one of the ways to do that.
Yeah, and then one resource to kind of like highlight here is this one specifically about sanctuary schools. And so this can be a nice one to share with parents who are worried maybe about sending their kids to school. Is it going to be a safe place or not? And so once the sanctuary schools policy is passed, it can give families some assurances of what kind of rights and protections their kids have in schools. And some of them are just kind of more general. Yeah, information to share with students. Certainly, you could share the things on the last slide. I compiled these three because they're kind of like short and sweet and to the point. And so I think this first one is just like a couple page facts sheet. These videos are made in Vermont, multiple languages. There's some short ones that are like 12, 15 minutes long. These Know Your Rights cards are helpful because you can actually have them in your wallet. And so if you were stopped by ICE, it describes how to use them. It describes what you could say to them. It has it translated into English and home language in case the student doesn't speak English. Yeah, some other things you might want to let students know is assuming that you pass a sanctuary school policy that school is a safe place, ICE is not allowed on campus. We can't share information without a warrant, just so they know that like ideally the ramping up of deportation may occur, but hopefully you can assure them that they are still safe at school. Yeah, another thing, just random things to know that I've been learning about is like driving without a license creates initial um, more risks for undocumented students. And so if a student with documentation is caught without a license, I don't know, they probably still get in trouble, but it's not going to risk deportation. But it can be a way to expose yourself unnecessarily. And luckily in Vermont, folks without documentation can get licenses. And so that's really important to get those. Um, and then, yeah, undocumented students aren't eligible for hunting and fishing license. So it's another way that you just don't want to expose yourself. Yeah, and just a recommendation to down here to just share these with all students. Because otherwise, you might be asking who needs to know about this, and all of a sudden you've singled out and you've asked information, which is actually what we're trying not to do with the sanctuary schools policy. And so even if you're sure, none of your students, all your students are born in the U.S., you may have knowledge of that. It's still good to share because perhaps they have a friend or a family member or a family friend. And so it's good just for everyone to have this knowledge and information. Other things, Monica, that we'd want to share with our students. Or Lapia, go ahead.
Yeah, I have a quick question about the students who can get a license even if they're undocumented. Would getting a license would it flag them out or single them out to anyone? Because I have a couple of students who would like to get a license, but they're worried that they're, potentially exposing or outing
So, two things I
themselves.
would say. There's actually a really big case, and I can find a link to it through Migrant Justice because in the past there have been illegal communication between the DMV and ICE where they were like just eyeing people, racial profiling, and sending their information. But that was, I think, deemed illegal, and anyone can correct me if I'm wrong. I'll double check. And so there should be, and there's fair and impartial policing, and so there should be safeguards in place that they're not allowed to do that. If they're uncertain and they want to hear from someone with more expertise, there's actually like a migrant justice hotline. And I think that would be a really great question for them to talk to someone with like more direct experience. But as far as I understand, it's safe. And I think if they call that migrant justice hotline, it might give them another sense of security to go forward with it. And I actually think it could be a good thing to do instead of a bad thing. Honestly, especially now because with Trump, it's like maybe that protection might be, I'm just making this up, ripped away in 6 months. I'm making that up, but you never really know. So I would say it's probably a good thing to do. I don't know if you want to add to that, Monica, or anything else in this slide.
I would just say that, like, in general, the more people, immigrants, refugees, asylum seekers, undocumented, otherwise, that do it, the more protection there's going to be because it's just like the power in numbers in general. And so, yeah, I agree. Definitely check in with the hotline, but I think that in general, having more people do it is going to be better than fewer.
Well, Feek, you want to go ahead?
Uh, yes, I think these, what am I going to, the accomplishment of migrant justice with the Department of Motor Vehicle and the relationship with the police, where we, like in my village, my town, Richmond, we passed FIP, which is how the police allowed or not allowed to treat migrants. It's changing quickly, and now I have a meeting after this meeting to discuss that they're going to make it a universal, like the whole state have the same kind of relationship between ICE and the police. So let's be careful, like who will be allowed to give information to ICE or not before we decide, because it's changing quickly.
Cool. Thanks, Wafik. All right. Anyone else have questions? We'll do it at the end too, but if you have questions along the way, feel free to unmic. What teachers need to know. These are kind of a couple documents, one shorter, one longer, really written towards educators and people in schools. So that has a lot more information. I did find this helpful. This is part of this 4-page guide. What to know that you don't need to open the doors without a signed warrant. You can remain silent, don't sign anything ICE gives you, and that you can report it to this hotline. And so you do have rights as a teacher to do those things. I don't know, Monica, if you want to share anything else that we'd want to highlight for educators to know. There's lots more here.
Monica put in the chat she had to jump off.
Oh, okay, got it. Anyone have any questions? I might stop sharing if there's questions. Whoops.
Well, I don't have a question per se, but I'm thinking, this makes me think about bringing this to my school board, which hasn't, I don't think is considering themselves becoming a sanctuary school, and why all schools should become sanctuary schools. And so I'm wondering about either if we could use this slideshow, this presentation, or if there are others who would be willing to come to school boards around the state to speak about being sanctuary schools.
Yeah, definitely happy to have you use this. And there are people in the group. A lot of them are pretty busy, but if you have a request, we may be able to help find someone, especially as like more and more people get trained. I do know that, I don't know if are you U32, Deborah?
No, Twinfield.
Twinfield, okay. Anyone
And
else?
I'm also just curious about the group, but I'll talk to you about that.
Anyone else have questions about this or things they're thinking about?
I just I think I know the answer, but to clarify, um, my idea is I'm on the school board policy committee. So the idea would be for me potentially to introduce this policy to the policy and amendment committee for adoption for our school district would be like the action item.
Yeah, exactly. That would be the action of what to do is let me just share because there's several different links. What I'm sharing now is a slide deck, but we have our website. Let me just share that here actually. And I'm gonna keep adding more stuff to it. But I realize I talked about this without even showing the actual policy. So let me pull that up. So if we go to sanctuary schools, and I'm gonna keep adding stuff here, But there's some of these links that I already shared it on here. I'll add the slide deck. Anyone's welcome to use that. You can use it and change it. And then there's the policy itself. So this is the policy here. And it just kind of depends on how the politics at your schools work. You could just show up and present it. It may make sense to have some conversations behind the door to get people on board first so it doesn't throw them off guard, to make sure you have other allies, such as the superintendent or the principals. But this is the policy. And yeah, they may want to make small changes to it. And I think that's not the end of the world if it's not, we want to do it with integrity. And so these 4 key pieces up here, you wouldn't want to get rid of these 4 key pieces, but there is slight language you can change. So yeah, Shannon, I don't know if that answered your question, but yeah, the idea is to actually push this policy through at the school board level and then support with the implementation at the district level and school level.
Great. Cool.
Yeah, so I think what Kelly, who helps write some of this, Kelly and I are going to present this to our Jedi team first, and then build support among the other teachers before we bring it to higher levels.
Yeah, and I think that's maybe a smart way of doing it so that you have you've built a base, you have people that have your back, and so if people at higher levels push back, you have some power to push back against them. But just getting as much buy-in as you go as possible, I think is important.
Can you, Alyssa,
Thank you.
email me? I'm sorry. Can you, Alyssa, email me all this information so I will bring it to the teachers, members of
Yep.
Richmond Racial Equity, so they will start the same on Chittenden East or in our
Yeah, great.
local.
Yeah, that'd be amazing. I'll email it to everyone in the follow-up email.
Okay, thanks.
Other questions? Just gonna share this last page on the slide deck, but feel free to ask any other questions people have.
Oh, Alyssa, can you also include the Migrant Justice Hotline on that website or
Yeah, for
somewhere?
sure. Yeah, I'll
Um,
add that there.
Yeah, I found a number of different numbers, and I don't know which one's the right one, and I don't know if there are any
Yeah.
any ones that trying to trap people. So
I'm gonna add
yes.
the corresponding resources and we have that in there. So this is just a few other links and things that might be helpful. And yeah, and if you're not on our listserv, you can sign up because we'll share I think next week I'll probably launch the more resources, but I can get that to you a little earlier, Lap. And yeah, I'll just share this out with everyone after the meeting. Any other questions? I'm just gonna stop the recording because the Q&A is done here.